You're in the wilderness. Everything that used to bring you joy feels distant. Prayers that used to flow easily now feel like they hit the ceiling. God, who once felt close, now feels a million miles away. You wonder, did I do something wrong? Is he punishing me? Has he forgotten me? And the silence is deafening. If that's where you are, I need you to hear this. The wilderness isn't punishment. It's preparation. And what God is doing in this season, even though you can't see it, is shaping you for something you're not ready for yet. Today, we're unpacking the biblical pattern of God's wilderness. And I promise you, if you can understand what God is doing, you'll endure what God is allowing. Let's start with Moses. He's born a Hebrew, but raised as an Egyptian prince. He has the best education, the best training, access to power. At 40 years old, he tries to deliver Israel his way, and he murders an Egyptian. He has to flee. And where does he go? The wilderness. For 40 years, Moses, who was somebody, becomes nobody. He's a shepherd in the middle of nowhere. No platform, no influence, just sheep and sand. And you know what God is doing? He's stripping Moses of his self-reliance. He's breaking down the man who thought he could save Israel with Egyptian might. Because God doesn't use your strength, he uses your surrender. And after 40 years of obscurity, God meets Moses at a burning bush and says, "Now you're ready." The wilderness didn't disqualify Moses. It prepared him. Now look at the Israelites. God delivers them from Egypt. Miracle after miracle. Red Sea parts. Manna falls from heaven. And they're headed to the promised land. The journey? 11 days. But they end up wandering for 40 years. Why? Because they complained. They grumbled. They doubted. They wanted to go back to Egypt. And God said, "Fine, if you don't trust me, you'll stay out here until you learn." The wilderness reveals what's in your heart. And here's the hard truth. Your response to the wilderness determines its length. The Israelites could have had an 11-day journey, but their unbelief turned it into 40 years. Don't extend your wilderness by refusing to trust God. Then there's Elijah. He just called down fire from heaven. He just defeated 450 prophets of Baal. He's on a spiritual high. And then Jezebel sends one threat, and Elijah runs. He collapses under a tree and prays to die. God doesn't rebuke him. He feeds him, lets him rest. And then he leads him to a cave. And in that cave, God doesn't show up in the earthquake or the fire. He shows up in a whisper. And he asks, "Elijah, what are you doing here?" Sometimes the wilderness isn't discipline. Sometimes it's rest. Sometimes God takes you to the cave because you're burned out, and he wants to remind you, "I'm not in the noise. I'm in the whisper. Stop performing. Just be with me." David, anointed king as a teenager. But he doesn't go to a palace. He goes to a battlefield. Then he goes to a cave. For years he's running from Saul, hiding, hunted. And in those caves he writes psalms, raw, honest, broken. "How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever?" David isn't pretending. He's not putting on a spiritual mask. He's pouring out his heart. And God is using the wilderness to form David's character. Because you can't lead a nation if you haven't learned to trust God in the cave. God promotes in public what he perfects in private. And David's wilderness years weren't wasted, they were required. Now let's talk about Jesus. After his baptism, after the Father declares, "This is my Son, in whom I am well pleased," The Spirit leads Jesus into the wilderness. Not the enemy, the Spirit. Jesus fasts for 40 days. He's tempted by Satan. And when he emerges, Luke 4:14 says, he returned in the power of the Spirit. The wilderness didn't weaken Jesus. It empowered him. Because the wilderness is where you learn to rely on God alone. Even Jesus needed the wilderness before his ministry. So why do we think we can skip it? And Paul. After his Damascus Road encounter, he doesn't immediately start preaching. He disappears into Arabia for 3 years. What's he doing? Being taught by revelation. God is downloading the gospel. Paul will spend the rest of his life preaching. The wilderness was Paul's seminary. And when he finally emerges, he's unstoppable. The wilderness wasn't a detour. It was the plan. So what is God doing in your wilderness? Let me give you 5 purposes. First, he's stripping false securities. The wilderness removes everything you've been leaning on instead of God. Maybe it's money, and suddenly you lose your job. Maybe it's a relationship, and it ends. Maybe it's your health, and it fails. And in the stripping, God is asking, am I enough? When everything else is gone, am I enough? That's a terrifying question. But it's the most important question you'll ever answer. Second, he's revealing your heart. Deuteronomy 8:2 says God led Israel through the wilderness to humble you and test you, to know what was in your heart. The wilderness exposes what's hidden: pride, bitterness, unbelief, control. You can hide these things when life is good. But when life is hard, the real you comes out. And God isn't exposing your heart to condemn you. He's exposing it to heal you. Third, he's teaching dependence. The Israelites got manna every day. They couldn't stockpile it. If they tried, it rotted. Why? Because God was teaching them, trust me one day at a time. You want God to show you the whole plan. He says, I'll give you today's provision. That's all you need. And that's frustrating, because we want control. But the wilderness teaches us God is in control, and he's trustworthy. Fourth, he's building character. James 1 says, trials produce perseverance, and perseverance produces maturity. The wilderness forms in you what a platform never could: humility, patience, faith, endurance. These aren't learned in comfort. They're forged in fire. And God isn't wasting your pain. He's using it to make you someone who can handle what he has for you next. Fifth, he's preparing you for promotion. Joseph went from pit to prison to palace. 13 years of wilderness. But when Pharaoh needed someone to save Egypt, Joseph was ready. Not because he had a title, because he had character. The wilderness isn't wasted time. It's required curriculum. And when God promotes you, it won't be despite the wilderness. It will be because of it. So how do you survive your wilderness? First, don't run from it. The Israelites kept trying to go back to Egypt. But you can't go back. You have to go through. Second, worship anyway. Paul and Silas worshipped in prison. David worshipped in the cave. Worship isn't denial, it's defiance. You're telling the enemy, you didn't break me, God is still good. Third, remember past faithfulness. When you're in the wilderness, your memory is your weapon. God delivered me before, he'll do it again. Fourth, don't isolate. Find people who've survived their wilderness You need their testimony. And fifth, trust the timeline. God isn't late. He's working. And your wilderness will end. It always does. Here's your promise. The wilderness isn't your destination. It's your training ground. And the God who led you in will lead you out. If you're in the wilderness right now, drop wilderness in the comments. Let's pray for each other. If this helped, like and subscribe. And share this with someone who's struggling. Because they need to know God hasn't forgotten them. He's preparing them. Let's go.